Welcome to the Master Passive Income Show. My name is Dustin Heiner, and I'm here to help you learn how to quit that JOB, that just overbooked job, by investing in real estate. And today I'm super pumped to have a fantastic expert on the show with me who has done lots of things, everything from Airbnb or short term to flipping to wholesaling, as well as having her own house hacking and stuff like that. Just literally does almost everything in real estate. So I'm super pumped to have her on. And she's also a good friend of mine, Sunitha Roa. Suni, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be back on it. I think I spoke with you right when I was starting my company, right when I was starting the podcast journey when I first moved to Indianapolis. So it's pretty cool to be back on with you. I think it's been 2 years, right, since we spoke.
It has, and so I don't remember which episode in it. So check in the link in the description if to find Sunitha's first episode, where she walks through her history being an Olympic tennis player and getting into it. So this episode, what I really want to do is talk about what you've done since then, and then how you're growing now. But I do want people to know who you are. So give us a big, broad overview of your journey as being a real estate investor.
I think earlier parts of my journey really have influenced my need for autonomy and entering real estate. So a lot of that was influenced by my very early years as a professional tennis player. I played tennis for 10 years on tour, played all the slams, was in the Beijing Olympics, and it was a great experience. I really loved that I could kind of have my own schedule. I was obviously my success also depended upon my opponent and some of the luck of the job, but I had a very heavy influence on how successful I could be by how hard I worked and the decisions I made. So then fast forward, I left the sport, didn't have any money, ended up quitting because of lack of resources. And I was like, okay, what next? And for me, that was, let's find a stable income. What is that? That's a JOB. That is a JRB. So I sacrificed a lot. Went back to college, went back to undergrad, took remedial high school classes, joined a multinational defense firm, got an MBA, and was just like, let's go, let's do this. And then I realized, all of my time, whether I want it to make that decision or not, is devoted to that job. No, everything, it comes before everything. And after that and a couple other instances, I realized, this job is influencing so much of my financial status. It's influencing my entire financial status, let's be honest. And so many of my life choices were dependent upon that financial status dictated by that job. So I was like, I need to diversify, I need to figure things out. I need to have more autonomy again. I need to feel like I have better control of my life and what I can do with it. So I started looking into personal finance, was interested in couponing for a little bit, definitely travel hacking. I still travel hack, but there's still such a ceiling with that. There's only so many quarters you can save on toothpaste, and there's only so many days you can travel when you have that job, maximum 15 days, and then you're back to it. And I eventually stumbled on real estate and was like, this is for me. I was 2 years ahead of undergrad. So I went into undergrad not making any money. Didn't make any money during undergrad, and then was just starting to save up. And then I hit grad school. When I was in grad school and working full time was when I discovered real estate. Didn't have money, really didn't have much time. Lack of money was a temporary kind of thing, situation. So I just studied every minute I had, every podcast I could listen to on my hour and a half commute to work and back, etc. And it took me about 2 years to finally get to the point where I felt like A, I knew enough, and B, I had a little nest egg saved to invest. And so then I started investing. Living in Boston, having a single desk job, making, I think at the time I was maybe making $60K a year. I couldn't get into the $500,000 homes and or duplexes that were even outside the burbs of Boston in maybe the middle class areas, or even some of the slightly lower class areas. I just couldn't afford it, So then I found long distance investing. And that was scary and that was tough. But that is something that I'm very passionate about because it really helped me change my life. And so much of the US population is concentrated in these larger cities where the jobs are, where the universities are. That's where a lot of people with discretionary income live. And that's where they also have these situations where they're kind of handcuffed to their job because they have that mortgage, they have the high cost of living, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm really passionate about sharing the opportunities from long distance investing, because I think that really has the ability to make an impact on a lot of lives. I started investing my first year, about 5 doors, all long. They, at the time, all long distance, all long term, and two were conventionally financed, and one was financed on a seller financing slash, like, I think it was like a land contract, because I realized pretty quickly I was running out of money and I needed to be kind of creative to figure out how to keep going. That year, the year I started investing, was really tough. So I was, at that time, I was working in biopharma. I was in finance, supporting C-level execs. I was finishing, well, halfway through my MBA program at Villanova. And then I started buying properties halfway across the country. And I just felt so much pressure from all of these things. And the least of which that I wanted to pay attention to was was that job, because I didn't feel like anybody really cared about me. They just kept like asking me for more things, and it was just very, very competitive. And I was like, I need to change a pace, and I need to not be in my car for 3 hours a day commuting. So I already had houses in Indiana, and I was like, I guess I'm moving to Indiana. Let's just go. So I moved out here and then transitioned into being a local investor. Since I already had a couple properties and I had a team in place, I just kind of kept rolling with it. At the time, it was easier than building out a new team, and it's worked out pretty well for me so far. So fast forward, I've been here almost in Indiana almost 3 years. I have 9 doors. They are mostly long-term rentals. I live in one. I'm house hacking a duplex, and I have one short-term rental. Over the course of the next year, I will be transitioning definitely two of my rentals into Airbnbs, because the locations are really good. And like, my one test case has been really good to me. And I am working on entering the flip market with property values increasing. It's nice to have like another source of additional income, of active income. And yeah, I've basically done whatever I could to get into properties, whether that's like, I've started using private money. That was not a thing when you and I spoke last. Like, I work with private investors to give them a really good like interest rate for like a debt position, and I'll exit them in a year. So I'm able to get into properties that way. I get into properties through house hacking, so low down payments for owner occupant financing. And then I live there for a year, fix it up, and get a tenant in. And yeah, that's kind of, I guess, the holistic of how I am where I am today.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm bringing you to the Real Estate Wealth Village conference is because you're an investor. We don't need people that just speak about this stuff. No, we want people who are investors, who are literally doing it right now, because I've learned so much more when I learn from other people's either mistakes or successes, and being around great people like yourself. Now, you also told me that you have also done a wholesale of, was a mobile home park or something. Tell me about that. That sounds pretty interesting.
It was pretty chaotic. One of the things that is really important to me is to like say yes to any opportunity that comes, where even if you don't know what it is, go all in and figure it out. And so one of those things was podcasting. So I went on like social media, I started talking to people, and I didn't really know the end result, but I figured, this can't hurt. I'm broadening my network. People are reaching out to me. I'm learning, etc. This is great. I'm adding value to others. It was just fantastic. Well, one of the people who heard me on one of my podcasts was a local investor and reached out to me. Turns out his parents owned a mobile home park 2 hours away. And his dad had gotten older and could no longer, it had been a couple of years. It kind of like fallen into disrepair, and they definitely could not like contain it any longer. They could not maintain it at all. And he was like, yeah, so I'm looking to figure this out. I think we need to sell this. Do you want to buy it? And I was like, what? I mean, mobile home parks, like, they have very high returns, there are fewer and fewer of them. I've heard a lot of good things. So I was like, I don't know, but I'll take a look and I'll figure it out.
That's a fantastic answer. So one thing I tell all my students, or students and as well as my kids, it's like, we'll figure it out. Like, that's what we do as entrepreneurs, investors, people who are basically, we're not working for somebody else. We will be problem solvers. We'll figure out a way to make whatever it is that's in front of us. We'll figure a way either through it, around it, over it, or whatever. We'll make sure we get it done. Now, as long as it's a good deal. If it's not a good deal, then we'll figure out, hey, we got to make it a good deal. But figuring it out is one of the best things, and being a problem solver. So continue your story, but I just want to definitely emphasize that being a problem solver, that's what you are, and what you've shown over and over again throughout your entire career of being a real estate investor is, hey, there's a problem in front of me. Let me solve this problem, or let me figure this out. So that's a fantastic characteristic trait to have. So go ahead and keep finishing your story.
Yeah. So also through the podcasting, I met someone, this woman who is such a boss. She was a doctor. She is a doctor. She has 2 kids, and she's like trying to build this legacy for them, And she was like, if you ever want to talk about mobile home parks, and this was actually before this deal came to me, and she's like, if you ever want to talk about mobile home parks or funding, I also do some like note investing. I do this, do that. She's done all kinds of investing in the last like 4 or 5 years. It's like truly phenomenal. So she reached out to me after hearing about this. And so after I got the call from him, I was like, she didn't have the direct experience for the kind of mobile home park we then encountered. But we agreed to partner on the deal. We both went down to Evansville, Indiana. It's about 2 hours south of Indianapolis. And the place was like really dilapidated, kind of falling apart, in pretty rough shape. And we like tried to figure out to make a way to make it work. And with me being 2 hours away and the kind of tenants and the kind of work it needed, like it basically needed to be rebuilt from the ground up. And without me having built out a specific mobile home park network in that area and already having my portfolio here and my full-time job here, et cetera, like 2 hours away, I was like, I can't, and the level of returns it would bring, I was like, I can't build that out. This is a completely new asset, that is going to require a ton of way more capital than I had. And even with us partnering, things would be pretty tight. And we were like, this is a great deal, but it's a bad deal for us and our resources in terms of what we can put in and we don't want to do this to necessarily make our lives a lot harder and a lot worse, So we were like, okay, we have options. We can get into it, fix up a couple, do a little bit of value add, exit. We can try to stay in it for as long as we can and then have that cash flow, or we can assign it. And as we were going through and realizing, okay, like one used to produce meth. There's another like 7, another 7 that like have been vacant for 10 years and hoarders had lived in them. There's all kinds of stuff. The ceilings were falling down. There's a tree growing inside one of the houses. All the like PEX laying and stuff, not PEX, all the plumbing had burst. Like we were just like, okay, so this is a really big project. How about we see if we can take our money and go? So what actually happened was, because when I went in negotiating, one of the things I always do with every property, every deal is, if I exit tomorrow, can I still make some money off of it? And I negotiated to the point where it was still attractive. There was still an equity bump for us just with the land itself, let alone the existing park, etc. While we were going through this process, I shared a little bit on social media, and someone actually commented on one of my posts, and he and I connected a week later. He's got parks throughout, and he lives, I think, in Michigan. He used to be in California, moved to Michigan, and now has parks like all over Indiana, all over Michigan, already has like an infrastructure set up in the state of Indiana, So we were talking, and at the point I wasn't going to sell. But then when we realized, maybe we just make some money and we find deals that are more in our wheelhouse and an asset class that's a little bit more in our wheelhouse, I called him back and I was like, I'm actually going to sell this park. I set up the contract so that I could assign it. That meant I didn't have to be the one to close on it. I could give the contract to someone else if I decided it didn't work for me, which is something I thought might happen with being new to this totally new asset class and everything else we had to do. So, this guy through social media, met him, and we negotiated an assignment fee. I think I made like $5,000 or $6,000, which wasn't bad given that. Yeah. And then my partner made the same, I believe. And we were like, okay, like a month of work, not really that bad. A couple weekends, a couple phone calls, like that works. So I somehow ended up
that's a whole new skill
wholesaling.
now too that you have.
Yeah. Now I know about mobile home parks. I understand what it takes to wholesale them. So
And so if it wasn't for the connections that you have, like the not necessarily a community, but like the network that you have built up. Like if you were just going to the MLS, buying a property, and then finding a renter and not expanding your network, meeting more people, talking to other investors, really just reaching out to other people, because that's how you and I met. You came up to me and said, "Hey, I invest," and I said, "Well, so do I. Let's chat." And so because of that, things happen, like ideas happen, deals come through. And so like that one lady that said, "Hey, I would love to, like, I've done mobile home parks, let's maybe work on a property." Then you had the ability to connect everything together. We had somebody selling, somebody who has potential, the money or the capability, started going down that route. And then you realized, hey, we can even just wholesale it. This other investor who is part of your network connected all, that's literally all four of you connecting together to make something benefit the sellers as well as the buyers as well as yourself. So having a network is just fantastic. And that's another big reason why I'm bringing you to the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference to speak, because teaching people how to invest out of state, that's a lot of work. Like that's a lot of people, like gets them out of their minds thinking they have to invest in their own local area. But at the same time, you're really good at connecting people. You're really good at networking and really making people feel at home. And so with you coming to the Real Estate Wealth Builders, I know you are also going to be sharing about like out of state. Tell us a little bit about the aspect of your talk and your session and what you're going to be talking about. Give us a broad overview about your session at the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference.
Yeah, so I'm going to be focused on long distance investing and the process of it. So, first, going to talk about what the benefits are of investing long distance, the aspects of diversification that I think some people would be surprised by, like business cycles and real estate being very local, like each one is different, talking about repeatability, talking about cash flow, talking about just different aspects where I think people some things might not be as easily viewable until you actually hop in it, and like you basically learn this strategy that you can then repeat other places. For example, you don't just have to stay in that one market once you figure out how to do it. After these last few years of being in real estate and starting off as a long distance investor, a lot of my network is still made up of long distance investors, so I definitely want to talk about like the drawbacks and challenges that they faced and I faced, and kind of perspectives and mind shifts to help overcome them, so that you can kind of elongate your journey in this, so that you don't get so frustrated and stressed out that you just burn out and you're like never again. Because real estate truly is like one of the most like equitable wealth builders available to us, right? So to have people get frustrated and not want to continue that, I feel like that would be a tragedy. So talk about the benefits, talk about the jobs, and then talk about the kind of journey. So into longest investing. So like, what do you have to ask yourself? What is the personal inventory you have to take to figure out your strategy, your location, your criteria, that sort of thing? What kind of internal work do you need to do to make sure you make decisions that are the best fit for your life? Okay, so then there's like the analysis of the area. We have macro, we have micro. Macro, you have the entire US to invest in. Which city are you going to pick? Which state are you going to pick? Like, there's so many options. It seems really overwhelming, right? Like, even me just thinking about it now, I'm like, oh, there's a lot out there. So, like, what are the factors that you would look at to choose what will be the right fit for you? And then when you choose a city, like there's millions of houses, maybe not millions, don't quote me on that, but there are a lot of houses in each city. So where it's all about real estate success comes down to location a lot of times as well, right? So what locations within a city, like how do you determine what pockets will be good for you and what pockets will be bad for you? Because that also is enough to make break success. Then lastly is the team. So you can do all the analysis, you can do all the personal inventory, you can have all the resources, you can pick the perfect house in the perfect city with the perfect strategy for what you bring to the table. If you have people who poorly manage the house you purchased, all of that doesn't really matter, right? Like if you have a property manager who upcharges or doubles the cost of a work order and then takes a kickback for it, you're losing money. If you can't reach your agent to put an offer on a house, you can't grow your portfolio. Like if a pipe bursts and you need to call a plumber and your GC won't answer, like you're not going to have tenants and you're not going to have a functioning home.
It's going to be great. I'm so pumped that you're going to be sharing on that because, like I said, like at RubeCon, we're going to have literally experts who have literally done this, have figured out the right way to do it. So definitely, everybody, you need to be at RubeCon. Go to REWBCON.com, RubeCon.com. Get your tickets right now. I'm going to be hanging out there with we have literally 27 speakers. So Sunitha, you've been to plenty of conferences. You've been to plenty of other events. Now, talk to us a bit about community and like what you're looking forward to at RubeCon and just meeting all these other great investors who are speakers, but also other great people that are going to be there at the conference.
The community of real estate investors that I've met since I think the conference where I met you 2 years ago, like they have just changed my life, both in terms of like friendship, emotional support, solidarity. I always make the joke that real estate investors are a little bit crazy because it's a hard road. Who would want to do this? And no, it's like, well, I won't say no one, but like statistically, there are very few people around us who think like we do. I found
Mhm.
it very when you're in the general population, when you're going every day to your job, like how many people do you know that are like, yeah, I invest in real estate. I'm into passive income. I'm into building multiple income streams. If you are in that job, that's probably a really awesome place to like mastermind different income streams, et cetera. But that's not the norm. So finding other people who will be there to truly understand your successes and your disappointments, that's invaluable. When I met you, it was at FinCon 2020,
I think it was 19.
2019. 29.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So that was my first foray into building my network. And that was a suggestion that didn't even come from a real estate investor, but he was like, you need to go. It would be good. I just moved to Indianapolis. I literally I just bought 5 houses. I didn't have any money hardly. And then I met at that conference, I met Elizabeth Colgrove. She's the one who does all the like short to midterm rentals out in California, right? And to get to that conference, it was like maybe 1,500 for me, but at that time, like 1,500 was I mean, 1,500 is a lot of money, but at the time it was a lot of money. I was like, what am I doing? Like, what? I cannot afford this right now. But I went, and just like the one meeting, just this happened in other parts of my business, but I call out Elizabeth specifically because she was the most impactful. She helped me launch my first Airbnb. It took it from a $400 a month long-term rental to where it's been netting over $1,000 a month, a 400 square foot,
Ooh.
1900 built like cottage house, 2 story, like, and that's just one aspect. She's now same person is now arbitraging my latest rental that I just bought for 10% over market and doing that on Airbnb so that she can make a higher cost of living or a higher return in a new area and test out her long distance arbitrage skills in the Airbnb space. And then that's just like the start. I my network has been instrumental to my success. This is all about this being successful in this business, all about like the people and then executing on that and adding value to others, because let's be honest, who's going to give you stuff if you can't give stuff in return? Everyone wants to be kind, but if someone, after a while, like even the biggest givers get a little bit tired when they feel like you feel like you're a little bit taken advantage of, right?
Yeah, and so thinking of because that's the thought that definitely went through my mind as I first started going to conferences. I was like, the cost of the ticket isn't all that much, but you add on time, flights, hotel, food. Like you add all that together, it does cost. It's much more than just a ticket. But here's what happened with me. So even though all that costs, like you said, $1,500, I've made dramatically, like not just dramatic, like explosively, so much more from that $1,500 cost to go to whatever conference it was, from networking, from community, from all the people around me. My income has literally just skyrocketed from there, as well as my influence, my network, and everything. Because if you go by yourself or you try to do all this business, any business by yourself, it is so hard. Why not be around people who are great people that want to help you and you help them? Like you said, I mean, there are times where I'm like, okay, this person's literally a taker. I'm not going to be talking. There's so many other people who would be not as much of a taker that I'm going to go hang out with. But what's great about the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference is the 27 plus speakers that we have. We're all givers. I actually carefully weeded out some speakers that weren't going to be a good fit because I wouldn't say they were anything negative about them. They just didn't fit. I wanted people who were givers, people who said, I just want to help people like you, Sunitha. Like you're not selling any courses. You don't have it. You just want to help people and connect people and benefit everybody in real estate investing. So it's fantastic that you're going to be there. So, okay. So Sunitha, people want to learn how to maybe invest with you or, keep in contact with you. How can they do that?
They can learn more about me through my website, griffixpropertygroup.com. That's GRIFFIX Property Group. And they can also connect with me on Instagram, which I believe is SUNI underscore RAO underscore. We'll look that up and put that in the show notes. But yeah, I'm accessible through both of those platforms.
Fantastic, man. Suni, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm super excited we get to hang out again. I was bummed this last conference that you and I were both at. Literally for like 2 seconds, we got to say hi, but I couldn't find you the rest of the conference. I was like, my goodness, this is so irritating. The
Yeah.
great thing about yeah, RubeCon is going to be so intimate. Like we have probably two, maybe 300 people there at most. It's going to be so intimate. You're going to see everybody. You're probably able to meet every single person there. So, man, Suni, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you.
Oh, thanks for having me. This is, as always, super fun chatting with you and looking forward to the conference.